Hey everyone, Chris Sawyer here. The Varietal Show is back. You are looking at the Madroña Nebiolo. Nebiolo in America? Are you kidding me? Of course I am kidding you, but not. We are here in El Dorado County, and in fact we are in the El Dorado AVA, the American Viticultural area, and I am with my great friend Paul Bush, and this is Madroña Vineyards. This is a very special vineyard to me. If any of you guys know Sacramento, we're looking right up on the hills above Sacramento. That's where El Dorado County is, and this is a smaller area inside of it. It has a separate little area called Fairplay too, which is about half an hour that way. And we're here more right off of Highway 50. The reason I really want Paul to be a part of this show today is the AVA is celebrating its 40-year anniversary, which is amazing, and we can talk all about that. You'll see a series of these that I'll do from El Dorado County producers from the AVA. But more importantly, Paul's family is celebrating their 50-year anniversary of being a winery. Woohoo!
It's a winery dance right there.
Yeah, winery dance. Woohoo! And it's a really cherished winery to me, just to really think about wine in a little bit of a different way in America. We are at 3,000 feet right now. Wow, doesn't look like it right behind us. That's just barrels, you guys, just if you didn't get that message. But what is very special about this, your family were very brave people, them and the Bogers. So the Boger winery is just down the road from us. It's about a 10, 12 minute drive down the hill. Just a little bit lower AVA, or in elevation in the AVA, but it is right along Highway 52. It's not that far going that way to Highway 50. One of the great things too about just driving in here, Paul, that I always enjoy is you drive through basically fruit trees and Christmas trees. And this is why you're in the middle of like pine forests and everything. We're looking down towards the west coast going that way, this way being east from here. And it's just, we're up here. What was your family thinking coming here, of all places?
Well, the interesting thing is my mom had grown up in the area, and we're not a farming family to start with. My dad had his doctorate in metallurgical engineering from Stanford, my mom in music and education from San Jose State. And they found a piece of property up here when we were living in Placerville that had a 32-acre field on it. It cleared at the 3,000-foot elevation. And so they went to the ag commissioner and the ag advisor at the time, two amazing people. So Ed Delfino and Dick Bethel.
Yep.
And they recommended that they might consider planting Christmas trees or maybe grapes. And had we been smart, we would have planted Christmas trees, but we planted grapes. But what they really wanted was for my parents to do a test plot of about an acre or 2 acres, not 32 acres of vineyards. But by planting that larger vineyard, I think it doubled the size of grapes in the area. But this area used to be famous for grapes back in the gold rush period.
That's correct. Think about this, you guys. Gold rush starts, all these people from all over the world start coming to California. They're here in the Syrah foothills, which is where we're at. And you start going down, you start mining in caves. You're kind of tired of doing that. And you go, you know what? These guys need to drink something every now and then. So maybe I'll start growing some grapes. Maybe I'll start making wine. Maybe I'll start a restaurant here. And that's what some of these people did. And it was a very prolific growth of California wines. Basically led by Zinfandel, which is basically when we think about the Sierra foothills, the first thing, if you were in this business like I was back in the 90s, first thing you think about when you think about the Sierra foothills is Zinfandel. And with good reason. It was the grape that was here originally, and yet today, what I think about with El Dorado, the AVA, is diversity of grapes. And is Zinfandel still there? Yeah, of course. But we're tasting Italian variety here, Nebiolo, and we're going to be tasting Syrah, which is the Rhone variety, and we're going to be tasting some Cabernet from really, the place in the mountains you can grow it, which is El Dorado County. And so it's really interesting. You guys and the Bogers, we'll say a word for the Boger family too. We were with Justin yesterday, and Carl, his dad, was there, and Sue and Carl came here, kind of the same exact reasons. They were advised to plant grapes up here. Carl's family actually is a Nicolini's from Napa Valley, so he had some heritage in his family. But it was like where they were going to plant was a different deal. And they actually founded the first winery, which is 1972. And it was almost a teacher before them, but he didn't have the guts to go with it, which would have been Gold Hill Winery, which does exist now, but it would have been that, and it's not, because Bogers are the first, and you're the second. Yeah.
Well, and the other important part of it is that during the gold rush, the wineries were prolific. We had 200 wineries in the area, all towards the Coloma area, much lower in elevation. Yep. You're right, Zinfandel, Mission, different varieties were being grown. But the industry died out.
It did.
Between prohibition and logistics and everything, and we were the pear capital of the world, was El Dorado.
Yeah. And now Apple Hill is right here, so apples everywhere, you guys.
Yeah, but what I think that offered was when things started up again with Bogers and ourselves, and then the McCrady's with Sierra Vista, and Granite Springs with Les and Lynn Russell, everybody was choosing varieties that weren't just stuck in what historically was done in the area. And now you see this diversity of varieties coming out because we've got the topography, we've got the elevations, we've got the soils to do this whole set of different varieties that we're really excited about.
I am too, and I think that this Italian variety, there's not much grown in California. I think this is one of the finest examples.
Okay, I gotta say something though. Nebbiolo, you're right, there's not a lot of it grown in California, and part of that is because it's a weird variety. We grow 26 varieties and Nebbiolo because it's not like anything else. Long spindly canes, it doesn't produce consistently and everything. It makes for a big tannic wine, light in color, yet it seems to work at this high elevation.
You're right. And I can only think of a few other examples, and one of them being in Yorkville Highlands, which is high elevation, once again. So we're not talking about valley floor at all. We're talking about an area up here. It's also the facings of which way. So that's a very important thing. It's about the topography. And we really talked about that in the seminar yesterday that we were part of. And with our great friend Mike Dunn, and we got to thank Lee Hodo. Thank you, Lee Hodo, for being you and for supporting the great El Dorado 8, which is 8 wineries that are part of this sub-association of the AVA that really represent great. But, here we are, we're looking at hillsides on the top of these mountains, and so there's these different, kinds of looks. Which way is most of the vineyard, or is it just, is it all over the place?
Imagine a circle. So we've got north-facing slopes, we've got south-facing slopes, east and west actually on it as well. And it all is trying to find the right elevation with the right exposure to take advantage of the variety and the soils. And these are all off of Aiken Clay Loam, which is a volcanic soil. So a little bit, it's got a lower pH, which tends to give a little bit more varietal focus to it. Yeah. So even in this Nebbiolo, it's not overly, a lot of times people get Nebbiolo really ripe to get the phenolic, tannins that drop a little bit. It doesn't happen, and so you end up getting this red fruit, this cherry and plum and everything going on in it.
I will say, last time I was here, I bought a bunch of Nebbiolo from Paul, and I've got them in my cellar. I love sharing them when I get the chances, with people that really love Italian varieties, and they think they know everything until I pull out a bottle from America, and it's from this vineyard, and people are like, oh my God, and you were just, Decanter Magazine just had you send samples to London, and you were in the top.
It made the short list.
The short list. Yeah. You gotta love that it made the short list of the world of Nebbiolo from the world, mainly Italy, obviously, and the Piemonte region of Italy in specifics. But this is just delicious. It's wonderful. I want Italian food really bad, but we are drinking an amazing example from right here in El Dorado County and El Dorado ABA, which is wonderful.
And it from a pure pairing point of view, there's some sort of alliteration there, but this and garlic copious amounts of garlic. My wife makes a 40 clove garlic chicken, and this is just like, it cats me out.
Wow.
So if you're tearing up garlic, then you should be drinking Nebiolo.
Here, here to that.
Cheers.
On that. Well, let's move on. We've got a Syrah here. And, you know, the Rhone varieties do extremely well. Yesterday we tasted we tasted some Marsanne, we tasted some Viognier from the white variety category. Here's the fabulous wine here, this little Syrah. And this is the 2019 vintage. But, you know, we get into really the reds, and we were tasting Syrah, Mourvedre, Grenache, and there's more up here. There's a little bit of Counois, there's even some Cinsault, there's some really amazing things. And you really love this grape variety, and what really brought you into planting it here?
So about 30 years ago, just over 30 years ago, we bought another 250 acres of land out near Pleasant Valley, or in Pleasant Valley, if you want to say, about 5 miles south of here. Same 2,800 to 3,000 foot elevation, same soils as we have here at Madroña. And so we ended up taking everybody that worked at the winery, and we did 2 weeks in the Rhone and 2 weeks in northern Italy. That's where we fell in love with Nebiolo, and it's where we fell in love with Syrah. Yeah. So we now grow Syrah, Marsanne, Roussanne, Viognier, Mourvedre, and Grenache.
Great.
And it's what I love about this elevation for Syrah is you end up getting more of the gamey, meaty side of like the northern Rhone examples of Syrah. Yeah. And so you get the balance, you get the elegance out of it. It's not a super high pH wine or anything. Yeah. It just is your classic expression of cool climate Syrah.
Yeah, and what I love about it is cool climate Syrah. Think about this, you guys. Cool climate Syrah is a word that's very important because Syrah can grow in both hot climate and cool climate. You think it's cold in Australia? No, it is not. It's 100-degree temperatures, but you get a very meaty kind of Syrah. Here, you get more of a blue fruit kind of characteristics. Those violets, how'd you put all those violets in there? No, it's just...
And that's 100% Syrah.
Yeah, this is 100% Syrah. So it's got the violets, it's got the lavender right on the nose, but blue fruit, you can smell it. And here we go, just deep dive into the blue fruit characteristics. And it's a great leading point to let it kind of open up. It's got there's a little bit of black olive in there, there's some blackberries, there's all sorts of other things in there. It's very complex, and it's a 2019 vintage that's just singing right now.
Well, I'm no great winemaker, I'll say that. But if you do your job in the vineyard, you don't have to be a good winemaker. And our impression is, I don't want to taste the winemaking. Yeah. I want to taste the region. I want to taste the vineyard. I want to taste the vintage, and I want to taste the variety. And the more I put my hands into it, the less it tastes like that.
Exactly.
So,
well, I think you've done a fabulous job with this one. Absolutely. And the mouthfeel is wonderful. You're not being beaten into submission with this one. Sometimes there are heavy Syrahs out there that you have to chew through, and you're like, oh, really? I didn't know I was being hired to work here by paying for this wine. I thought I must have pleasurable experience, and this is a pleasurable experience. You know, it's just one of those wines that really just shows its real true nature of the grape, and in a very unique situation where we're at 3,000 feet. We have other good examples up here from inside this AVA. We also have Amador County, which is next to us, and Ann Kramer, who's an amazing, Shake Ridge. But, people from Napa Valley and Sonoma County, they come up here to buy fruit from these guys because it's just different than what we have down and, closer to the ocean. And it's neat. The granite-based soils here, the volcanic ones, and then the granite-based soils, they give you flavors. We were talking about this yesterday, too. You're surrounded by pine forests.
Oh, yeah.
And these needles are we're not using power blowers to get these out of here. They are part of the whole flora and fauna. And this year has been an interesting year with some snow. And
I skied the Zinfandel block this year and did the first ever winemaker invitational. I was the only one I invited. One. Yeah. But a shout out on one thing about this, in doing Syrah in these kind of elevations, they still have good acid.
Yeah, they do.
And sometimes Syrahs can be overly weighty and thick, And this one just, I think, is like the other ones from this area, are balanced with more acid. So.
This is just delicious. I need to drink more of this after the show, but we need to move on. So we're going to talk about Cabernet Sauvignon. You heard it, Cabernet Sauvignon from up in the Sierra foothills. Are you kidding me? I'm not at all. And this is one of the things here. We are at 3,000 feet. I didn't say this yesterday in the seminar, but there is an amazing winery, Casa Madroña, which is in Mexico, the kind of the higher point there. It is the oldest winery in the Americas. It's from 1796, I believe. I did one of my shows from there last year. And it is at 6,000 feet. And they were very well known for doing brandies there, and then they really got into the wine thing. So don't think that elevation is like you can't do it up here. It's really growing the right grapes that fit into this area and having water sources. When you're up here in the snow-capped mountains, so it's a little bit different than being in an oasis like that in Mexico, it's very different. So you have snow-capped mountains, and you do have these streams that come down. So you do have water source. That is a key to agriculture, is having water sources. In the old days, when all these Zinfandel vines were growing up here, there was no irrigation, there was no nothing. That didn't even start till the 60s, 1960s that is. And that's a crazy phenomenon, but it's why the success of this region was already here. We already knew you could grow this stuff, and that rain would fall, snow would come, and the grapes are dormant. Today is a very strange day here. We are in June, and it is kind of raining. And we had a scare of maybe thunder. We did hear thunder yesterday, but it could have been lightning. But, you know, you never know what Mother Nature's going to give you, but you know that for 50 years of doing this, you're kind of doing okay. So Cabernet Sauvignon, if there's one area of the whole Sierra foothills that I will say is the place to find Cabernet Sauvignon, and at an amazing price too, in most cases, is here in El Dorado. I mean, just in general, it's just a special area. This is a special little part right here. You have a different view than anyone else in this whole entire community here. Fairplay is another good one. That's a very good place for Cabernet Sauvignon. But there's just two zones that I really look at for this whole entire area, and that's the Fairplay little subpart and this one right here. What makes this so special? Why did you think Cabernet was going to work in the first place?
So we put in Cabernet because that's what you did.
Yeah,
in the early 70s, Chardonnay, Cabernet, Merlot, Zinfandel, and Riesling were the 5 original varieties that were planted. Now we've taken it up to 26, 27 different ones. So this is actually own-rooted Cabernet Sauvignon, 50-year-old vines, organically or naturally farmed, no herbicides, small lot production, and you're right, it sells for $32 a bottle. But that's because it's the local community that's kept us in business all these years, and the demographics don't afford $100, $200 bottles, where you can get this kind of quality and it make people happy in the local area. So when you taste this, or when I taste this, I want to have a little bit of the herbal essence of Cabernet Sauvignon, those savory spices and that kind of thing going on, but also get more of the currant characters rather than the chocolatey or those types of things. It's everything about ripeness.
Currants,
And we get the phenolic ripeness out of Cabernet Sauvignon, where it doesn't have to be super high in its bricks. So it's not overly alcoholic. This is under 14%, and it's just meant to age with that cutting bit of acidity.
Yeah, it's got a little, what I call gourmet chew too. It's kind of like that sticks right here in your lip, but the tannins are in balance, and that's the most amazing thing about it. It's just a lovely, lovely version of it, and it tastes exactly like Cabernet Sauvignon grapes taste. And that's a really important thing, is sometimes the grape character is completely lost when there's too much influence by the winemaker. I mean, completely, where'd you get all the chocolate? Who put all the chocolate stuff in there? Who did all this? Well, why don't you just taste the grape, you know? And I think that really the legacy of the grape, we don't have that many that survive 50 plus years in Napa or Sonoma. And in some cases we don't even have the examples, but you know, it's because they removed a lot of Zinfandel, old vine Zinfandel from certain places and put in Cab, and then they pull it out for 40 years because the yields are down and they're finding new clones or whatever. But you guys have had this on its own roots for 50 plus years. It's amazing. amazing, you guys.
So we're lucky we don't have phylloxera in the area, okay?
Or diseases in general.
Yeah. But the other thing about it is that I'm getting a 10.5 per acre, but I believe in this Cabernet Sauvignon. I love the extraction that you get out of it and everything without it being like thumping you over the head that it's this big wine. But the coolest part, no pun intended, the coolest part about this elevation is we make it over the hump of the heat of August and get into the shorter days and the cooler nights and the cooler days of the fall, and we get this wonderful hang time. And Cabernet Sauvignon, in my opinion, really enjoys having that extra hang time.
I agree, 100%. And the other thing is that you need to have gravelly types of soil or rocky soils. It's the volcanics up here, you guys. It's granite and volcanic matter. I mean, there's nothing but it. And the fact is, the soils are not deep up here. This is very different than the valley floors, where the big plantings and the big trees were down there, because you could just go forever and their roots could go for as far as they want down. It's not the case up here in the Sierra foothills, and especially here in El Dorado.
Well, and we all have neutron probes in the field that are read once a week that tell exactly how much water we have available for the vines, and that's an important part. So, okay, I wanted to bring this one into the mix.
This one, it's great when Paul says, okay, we're going to do, you want how many wines? Because we would be here all day.
I wanted to do 28.
Basically, he would have done 28. And Nebiolo is even different, remember. He puts that in a different category all by itself. This is 1993, 1993 vintage of the Cabernet from the same vineyard source right here. But remember, that was their 20-year anniversary. Now we're in the 50-year anniversary.
Yep.
So this would have been your 20-year anniversary wine.
So we just did a dinner down here in the barrel room that every course was Cabernet Sauvignon. And we poured the 79, the 87, the 93, the 03, the 04, the 10, and the 15. And it was just a blast and a half. The 78 is off the charts. We have every vintage of every variety that we've ever made in the library, going back to 1978.
Well, so I love the fact too that we did not decant this now. No. We just popped cork. Cork's really strong too. I mean, it's a good one. You did use the Osso on this one, yes?
For sure.
Just because you always want to use Osso on these old ones. You never know what it looks like down there. This looks really clean. It smells super clean. When you're tasting a 30-year-old Cabernet like this, it's amazing. And especially when the heritage, I love it. There's even this like kind of wildness to it. I mean, it's like where the wild things are. Like this is like the book right here, you guys, in liquid form.
So giving credit where credit is due. Okay. I've only been making the wines. I've been growing the grapes for quite a while, but I've only been making the wines for the last 21 years. Yep. So this one was actually made by the spectacular winemaker Hugh Chabelle, who's at Kivera Winery. And
my great friend Hugh.
Yeah, my great friend too. He still helps us out and everything. But I love the balance on this wine. It's not at the end of its life. It's still got some tannins to it and everything like that. But at the same time, there's a silkiness that comes across on the wine. And it's just a pretty example of why you grew Cabernet Sauvignon in the mountains. Good acidity, good tannin structure, helps for the overall ageability.
Yeah, there's some real interesting notes in here. The cassis kind of note is really there. The black currants, cassis, and kind of a wild sage thing going on in there. It's really amazing. The sage, like I just can't imagine like what this pairing would have been, and that would have been midway through that probably those courses. So it must have been maybe a meat dish, or maybe like duck would be something that I'd kind of go there, but like who knows?
Kim Medici is one of the best chefs.
She's the one to get to know. I met her yesterday. She's now my new BFF.
Yeah, Table Nectar is her thing, and so we tasted the wines together. Then she took bottles with her, did the pairings and everything, and this was done with a coffee encrusted or infused pork belly. Yep. And it was off the charts.
Hello. Hello. Yeah, I want in. This is amazing. It's just the generosity of the flavors. I mean, it doesn't seem old at all. It's 30 years old, you guys. And it's not tasting old at all. It's tasting like vibrant, and it wants to be your friend really bad. And we just popped this thing. I mean, there's no doubt that this is brand new, just opened.
Well, and I've always
wanted to get out of that bottle for a long time, and we just liberated it, but it's good.
My thing is only decant a bottle if you need to.
Yeah.
If it's funky or whatever, then decant it, but you're going to be losing some fruit characteristics. If you don't need to decant it, don't decant it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, I think it's aging better than I am. So,
Oh, come on now. Come on, brother.
I had to throw that in.
Well, I really appreciate you bringing me and our amazing audience out there here, Paul. And, you know, I want to wish you guys like the greatest success for the next 50 years.
Thank you.
50-year anniversary for Madroña, this amazing vineyard and winery right here in the El Dorado Hills. But most specifically, El Dorado AVA.
Yep.
And that is a very important part of El Dorado County, and it's not all of El Dorado County. For any of you guys that go up to Tahoe, I mean, you drive right past this place. You just don't know it. You've got about 2 miles right off the road, and you're here. But you do go through those trees and everything, and it's an amazing experience. Every time I get the opportunity to come up here, I do it. It's a very special year because you're based in my book too that I'm working on in 1983, the making of these amazing AVAs. But you are 1973, and his family already had this place going, you know, and that's an amazing point here. That this is the new generations that really came in, the original pioneers of the modern generations that came in here with Boger and the Bush family, just Paul's family. And it's just a very special thing for me to have a relationship with them for so many years, since the 90s that I've known you.
For sure.
And tasting these wines that are just screaming with flavor. I mean, yeah, I love it, you guys. Get the dance moves on. It's happening here in El Dorado.
I can already hear my wife saying, "Stop dancing, Paul. Stop dancing."
I love it. Well, thank you, brother.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Taste more wine at all times.
Of
together.
course.